Hello, hi there, and welcome to my show. Today's discussion will be about ticking fines and charges. Okay, so there are four systems of law that runs parallel to each other when we talk about this topic. There's four systems. We gotta know which systems we operate in. So are we driving under license? Or are we just going about our business? We really have to know what system we're operating under. Okay, but before I go deep into that, let me give you a bit of background about the parking meters we come to know today that give us all these parking hours and stuff. So the first parking meter was invented back in the 1930s, 1935 to be precise. The inventor of these first parking meters was a man called Carl McGee. And Carl McGee was an ex-banker turned ticket inventor. Of course, the banks, of all the various inventions of tickets and fines and charges, but Mr. McGee retired from those kind of levies and decided to create a new one. This time he was very innovative with with the motor industry, and so the parking meters were installed as a means of charging a levy on everybody that wants to use the space to park, which was free before, but anyway, somebody came up with a bright idea to charge them to use it now. So anyway, so that's where it all started. 1935, USA, Oklahoma. The first parking meters were rolled out as we know them today. They changed a little since. Now I'm from the UK, so I am going to tell you now. It started in the UK the 10th of June, 1958. It was rolled out in the Westminster Council in Mayfair, the same council that has the congestion charge zone. So that's a bit of a background there when it started, who started it, and when it came to the UK. Now, as I say before, there's four parallel systems running here, and we have to know which one we are on this. So the first system is natural law. Now, natural law is a bit like, well, it's innate, it's instinctive, it's reactive to us because we know instinctively, reactively, naturally when something is not right. So if you imagine yourself, I think we've all been in this position where situation where we might have taken a dog's pup from the creche, and the dog comes and wiggle, the female dog comes and wiggle the tail and give you a little smirking noise. You're still there stroking the pup, and you didn't get the message, and the dog, the smirking, the growling starts to get louder and louder, and you still don't get the message. You're still there stroking, and it's as if the dog is saying, "Put my property down, my property, give it back." And you didn't get the message, and three strikes and you're out. So the dog proceed to perhaps nip you on the leg or whatever it is, and it ends on a sour note. So it's a bit like that. That's natural law, and we all know that that basket of fruit belongs to Bobby. He just picked it from the tree, puts it there, busy doing something else, and somebody wants to carry it off with his property. Bobby turns around and Bobby looks and says, "I'm giving it a look. Don't do that. That's my property. Don't touch it. Leave it alone." Anyway, the individual decides to proceed with carrying off with Bobby's baskets of apple, and then Bobby starts to shout, didn't listen, and Bobby has to go over there and three strikes. And I don't want to say he's out. I don't advocate violence in no way, shape, or form, but we all know the rest. Bobby goes over there and have a strong word with this individual. Let him know this is my property. Leave it alone. It's it's the same like the dog. It's saying it's my creation. It's my monster. I created it. Leave it alone. It's proper to me. That which is proper to me, my invention, my creation. Leave it alone. It's mine. It's my property. So that's what the dog would be saying. So that's the natural law. The second law is common law. Now, common law is unwritten law, laws of the Eskimo. Nothing is written in stone, but everybody knows that little eyesore there is dug by somebody, and if you come up and see it's dug, you know it's belonged to somebody and it's not your own, and you'll be looking around to see who perhaps will be come and claim this hole while I'm fishing in it. So it's a bit like that. It's a bit like that. It's unwritten, but everybody knows that. Well, you didn't. That hole was not dug by you, and therefore it's dug by somebody else, and there's somebody's rightful property, so to speak. So that's the unwritten law, LORE. Now the common law is the written version of common law. So LAW is the written version of LORE. So LORE more or less the folklore of the people, the custom, the tradition, the wisdom, the teachings of the people. Okay, it's folklore. So they used to tell it. So Bobby's father was a tall, was the tallest man of the village, and so on and so on. So it's unwritten, but everybody knew it, and it's handed down from generation to generation verbally. Common law, LAW, now was the it's still the unwritten form of law, but it's more like, well, injury, harm, or loss. We put it down on the paper. Everybody knows. The jurors knows. They all come together, jury of your peer, and they all make a decision based upon what was understood and what is written down and what is taught to everyone in classrooms and so forth and so forth. I'm quite sure when they get together, the jury, and they tell them, look, this, and this, they give them on a piece of paper. Okay, unlike when early human society was formed, it was unwritten. It's just word of mouth. We didn't have the written language at that time. So that's where it was proper common LORE, common law, folklore, teachings, doctrines, traditions, customs, and values of the people, or the common understanding of the people. When the bell rang once, it was that we had visitor. When the bell rang twice, when it was that we had a new well was dug. When the bell rang thrice, somebody had on a platter, when the bell rang fourth time, we had visitor. Fifth time, a new leader was elected. Sixth time, I don't know, a new well was dug, and so on, so on, so forth. So it's not written down; it's common understanding. So that's common law and common law. They're one of the same, but one is just more handed to you nowadays on a piece of paper, but still unwritten largely. But just, it's just that we understand it in the written language a bit better now. Now the fourth one is statutory law, the code world, the world of legalese, the law society. Now this law is rigid in its construct, its rules and regulations. It's this kind of legislative kind of construct where people are governed by rules. So if you break code 361, driving in a bus lane, or 5212, speeding, or 10580, driving without license, etc., etc., these are rigid punishments. Unlike common law or natural law, you have to do something in order to violate it. The code world, you don't have to do anything to violate it. So the code world, you don't have to have APS copy, you don't have the body of evidence. Okay, you don't have to prove that that man committed a crime. You just have to say violated a code, and that's a crime for them. And therefore, violating a code, drinking in public without this and that and that and whatever, you haven't committed a crime, injury, harm, or loss to your fellow man, but you're convicted and sit behind bar for something you don't know why you're there, but all of a sudden you're there because you violate some numbers in a book. Okay, so you didn't commit a crime to your fellow man, but you're there because you violated a number in the book. So that's kind of the code world. You don't really have to commit a crime. The only good thing about the code world, I don't want to divert too much here, but the only good thing about the code world is that if you got somebody that's, say for instance, threatening you, although he hasn't harm you yet or injure you property yet, well, you can get rid of him with sanction. What do you call it? You can get rid of them with all kinds of laws, like what do you call it? Where you can't come within 10 square miles of this person, and I forget what they call them. Restriction notices and so on and so on and so forth. So yes, you can get rid of them easily with that, despite they haven't done anything, especially in the case of stalking, where a female could report a person walking behind them for too long or stalking them, whether they were doing it or doing it not. The person can be ordered to leave the city or not come within 10 square miles of that person, and so on and so forth. So that's the only advantage with the code word. But the disadvantage is that the poor chappie hasn't done anything wrong, and maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, who knows what was his state of mind. Maybe he wasn't quite there, or maybe he just felt like to walk that road all the time. I don't know. Or he's a man that just likes to stare in people's house, or looks at the ladies. I don't know. He might have been a stalker, he might not have been a stalker, who knows. But anyway, he can't come within 10 square miles because they had an injunction against him or something like that, and then he's ordered to leave the city without having done anything wrong. So one law will protect you fully, as I explained in previous videos, and the other one is kind of like, you don't have to do anything, but we can still get rid of you. So that's statutory law, that's the fourth law. So the third one is more or less common law. What is common in the, for instance, the law society, as what is common to them is common law. Okay, so that's their largely written law. Common law, which is the same as common law, is more or less the unwritten version of common law. But the folklore, the doctrine, the teachings of the people, we agree that that color is red, because if we didn't agree, we couldn't communicate, because if we don't agree it's red, then we're not on the same page, so we can't communicate. So it's verbally, but these days largely it's written down, and everybody has it on a piece of paper, and everybody can say, all right, those are the rules. So there we go. So that's the difference between the natural law. Give it back, the dog makes a growl, then it becomes more louder and louder, and before you know it, he snaps at your leg, and you gotta put it down. So that's the natural law. So the common law again is a bit more like Moses coming down from the mountain, and he has these tablets in his hand, so the story goes, and it has 10 commandments on it, and he threw it at the people because they didn't want to listen to the 10 commandments. Presumably it was from God and all that stuff. The problem with that is that people knew instinctively before that if you take somebody's stuff, like the basket of apple belongs to Bobby, and if you take that apple, everybody knows he put it there and it was his, he picked it all by himself, and therefore the fruit belongs to him. So nobody has to tell anybody not to steal anything. We didn't need a tablet for that. Anyway, that was more like the written version of common law. It's common knowledge, but now it's written down. It's slightly different from statutory law, because those are the code word. Those are laws of, the legal society, where you don't have to actually steal a basket to go to prison. You just have to merely look at it, or they say it has been reasonable doubt that you would have committed the crime. So it's an assumption that you would have, based upon your behavior, and therefore we're going to bang you up for the rest of your life, because we assume that you perhaps would have done it anyway. So before he's done it, let's bang him away, despite he's not done a single thing. So that's more or less the difference between the four of them. Now, how do we live under these four different systems without getting caught up in all its various tentacles of deception, I have to say? Now, largely the code world which we're under, pretty much, is run by machines. So it's the rise of the machine kind of thing. So the machine now looks at a vehicle coming, and if that vehicle swerves out of line for whatever reason, maybe the poor chappie has an heart attack or whatever it is, sends him a ticket, and that's it, it's all done. 450 pounds, whatever, and if he hasn't got a good reason, like maybe he just really was dying for a pee and he just pulled over in the bus lane and he just ran out and go, yeah, I don't really care, he's violated the code 136 and he's gone. Okay, he has to pay. Now thank God the machines are a little busy in some cyber world, in other dimensions, fighting other machines. Right now they're a little cumbersome and slow on the walk. So but pretty soon we'll be seeing something coming down the road that's unmanned. Well, it's not manned, and it'll be pretty much walking like us, talking like us, and before you know it, it grabs you and say, oh well, you violated my laws and therefore you gotta get the punishment I dish out for you. 55 years in prison, or maybe break your leg, who knows. But anyway, we're not there yet, so thank God for that, and let's hope that we can let's hope we never get there. So anyway, so that's kind of the cold world we live in now. It's all run by machine, a camera, billions of them, just ticket you and finding you, and it makes the human being lives miserable and very oppressive kind of rules, because the machine decides that license plate or that car violates that rule. Okay. So how do we live under this system? Well, there are ways. If you don't know what laws you're operating under in your daily life, it can be very difficult for you to operate without being penalized for it. So, so I'm going to use myself an example, just for the as an example here, just for the sake of it. So I know what laws I operate under when I step out my door or when I'm inside my house. Inside my house is private. I operate by the natural law, the common law. Okay, it's private, it's mine. Leave it alone. It's mine. Don't touch. The when I say, for instance, going from A to B, be it in my private conveyance, my whatever, my chariot, my donkey, my tricycle, my Batmobile, my alien spacecraft, whatever it is I'm traveling into, whatever is my creation, my monster, whatever it is that is proper to me, my property. I'm going from A to B in my property with my property in any manner I wish. I could be driving at 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, whatever I deem that is reasonable and is within, not going to break, not going to interfere with my fellow man's rights as well. So if I know if I go too fast, I might be interfering with others' rights and property and so on and so forth. You might have an accident, you might kill somebody. It's a bit. We all know what is kind of reasonable. Okay, so anyway, if I'm pulled over by the police, for instance, going about my business, say I'm going to pick up the kids, or I'm going to work, I'm pulled over by the police. Of course, I'm not telling you what to do, but this is what I would do just for the sake of it, argument here. Of course, if I'm just going about my business, I'm not traveling on the license, so I have no obligation to give them any details that they ask. The sad reality is that if you give them the details they ask you, you're now under their jurisdiction, and that's the real sad reality about all this. Many people would like to comply. They would like to give up all the details, though they don't have to, but they don't mind. Just give them up and go about your business. But the problem is, if the officer then decides to go further, you have no standing after that, because you willingly give up your license, for instance. Now, the reason why the license is so important here is that you only require a license if you're doing business. So if you're driving, you require a license. So if you're driving, if you give up your license and registration and your name and your address join there, then they now have jurisdiction over you, and that's a sad reality, because, as I say, most people just like to give it up and just get on with their lives. But now they have jurisdiction over you if you do all that, and there comes the problem, because now you really have no say, even if you go to court. If they violate your rights any further, and you decide to go to court about it, this violation, they're gonna say, well, I asked him if he was driving, he said yes. I asked him to produce his license, he gave me, and I did not break the law, because you only require a license if you're doing business. He confirmed he was doing business, and he was operating on the license at the time of the stop. And there goes the problem. Okay, so although you'd like to just give them your details and move on about your business, if you do that, you're almost certainly going to find yourself in this web of deception called the code world, the statutory laws, the legal, the various legislation and laws that govern the society. So that's the sad reality about all this. But anyway, so you've got to know what laws you're traveling under. So as for me, I am always going about my business in my property with my property, and I don't see anybody should have a right to interfere with my property, be it an officer in a uniform or a man or woman traveling down the road. I should not be interfered with. I'm just leave me and wish to be let alone. Okay. Now, of course, if you're traveling under license, it is only reasonable that one produces certain documentation, and by doing so, it means now that they are obliged to pay a contribution to the maintenance of critical infrastructure such as the roads. Now, man-create government, and the reason why man-create government is to facilitate the production of create all these critical infrastructures such as roads, piping water to your home, electricity if we have the ability to generate such a thing, and we do, and various other institutions in order to facilitate the good running of the society, efficiency of a society. So it's only reasonable that all of us contribute if we're going to use the road for business. So you're going to use the road to earn money, like a cab driver, a lorry driver. You know, you're moving freights and cargo, you're shipping goods from port to port and so on. You're all, it's heavy. You're carrying heavy loads. So it's a lot of wear and tear in the road, and therefore you need to contribute to the um, to the maintenance of the road, because there will be a lot of wear and tear. Okay, so so it's only reasonable that one is charged a levy, a kind of tax, a kind of fine, and be asked to produce their license as well, just for verification and confirmation that they're doing business. So if you're traveling under license, as I say, if you're a cab driver and so on, you will have to produce a license when you're asked to do so by an officer, if he stops you. Okay, so and I always encourage people to cooperate as much as they can, as long as they don't give up their rights. Okay, you know, if they ask you, if they order you to get out of the vehicle, you know, if it's an order, I mean, if it's not an order, you don't have to get out. But if it's an order, you know, I urge everybody to get out and comply, because you know they're carrying guns and batons and whatnot, and they could tase you and they could do all kind of manner of stuff. And I've seen some dreadful footage online, and I have to say that in the UK here, I have to say we have some of the best police officers and law enforcement agents in the world. A policeman and woman over here in the United Kingdom, they're I don't know if it's because they're a bit more in tune with the laws, or just the sovereigns on the land of people, but or they recognize that they're servants and they should not violate certain, because their duties, obligations and privileges, they have no right in their capacity of officers, but the sovereign, the common man, as a woman that's walking down the road, has rights. um, so as soon as the officer takes off his uniform, his or her uniform, then they're now one of us. They're now a sovereign, and they now have rights. But in the capacity of officers and all that, they don't have rights. They only have duties, obligation, and privileges. Okay. Now, so as I say, it is a pity that we can't really comply, and we have some of the best officers in the world in the UK, and one of the reasons why I say that, no, I've never seen any evidence to suggest that, whether video or audio, to suggest that the officers of here will just violate the sovereign's rights. I mean, I've seen officers on footages online punching the sovereign, and I'm looking at that. I'm thinking, my God, if that's the servant, then my God, I don't want to see how much power the sovereign should have if that's the servant punching somebody else. But then again, if the servant is punching the sovereign, then that means the sovereign has no rights. Wherever that footage was, that's if that's a crime worthy of punishment, then I don't know what else is. So, you know, over here in the United Kingdom, I've seen people, you know, spat at the police, kick at the police, throw bottles and so on at the police, which I don't believe is right, for the most part, unless it's really warranted, and I can't see much reason for it to be warranted, you know, except for in a revolution or something like that, you know, something really serious like that. But if an officer is willing to violate his or her rules, or laws that they swear oath to follow, then you could always deal with that in the courts. But I don't think one should spit at officers, or throw bottles at them, kick or punch at them, or kick or punch them. I don't think that that is right. And if you have a dispute or an argument or whatever you have with an officer, a disagreement, you should take it in the courts, and a common law court of record, trial by jury, can handle all that. And generally, of course, they do not want to go to these places because they're operating in a fictional capacity. They're operating in a fictional capacity, and therefore they will not be able to testify in court. And so most of them rather not violate your rights for the fear of losing their jobs and their little position their good paid position oftentimes they have. So they're quite comfortable in what they do, and most of our English police, British police officers over here, um, you know the value of the role they play, and it's a cushy little job, and so they kind of don't want to lose it, if you get what I mean. So they kind of stick by the rules largely. However, I've seen incidents where people, you know, spat at the officers and so on, and they're restrained rather harshly, but I can see where I would perhaps do the same thing if I put myself in their shoes. So I'm not gonna really go too hard on them. Sometime having somebody restrained, because if somebody spit at me in the course of my duty or so on, I may react the same way. I'm only human, and I'm not going to say that they're all a bunch of wicked pirates. I'm not really going to say that. Now, one has to remember that an officer in a uniform is just another person, just another man or woman. Sorry. Well, is a person. He or she's a person, but they're just another man or woman. Okay, they live next door to you. If they're not well paid, if they're well paid, they live very very far from you. A bit like the rest of the high society that we come to know. They don't live with us or among us. They live away from us, apart from us, very far away. They're gated this communities and the gated places and all their mansions, all that kind of stuff. They live very far. They don't live with us. So don't forget that the common Bobby down the road that you're gonna meet walking along, he's average Joe. He goes down to the pub as soon as he takes off that uniform, and he's just your fellow man. Okay, so don't be too hard on him. I really don't see the need to be very aggressive with officers at any time. Now, I hope that was able to clear up a few points you may have there. So if you're operating on the license, it is important that you produce your license when asked to do so, because of course you're doing business and therefore you're obligated to pay a levy and so on and so forth. Produce your license. If you're not operating on the license and you're just going from A to B, you're just going to pick up your kid or going out to the market and get some fruits, well, of course you can politely decline, and if they insist, then of course you can cooperate, but under duress, always under duress. And if you have to sign anything, of course, they might, force you to do something against your will, but you sign under the duress or by so and so, John Henry Doe. Okay? So that is largely how the system kind of ensnare you. Of course, if you need any more information or any kind of information how to present yourself in court or at court, because the court system is a very tricky one. Even in a common law court of record trial by jury is very tricky. The way you present yourself, the way you answer questions, the way you don't, what you say, what you can and can't say, how to write the notice to the court, how to present yourself in court, at court, because they might want to summons you in their court before you could get yourself into the common law court of record trial by jury. So it's very important you preempt these things. It's very important you do disclosure early. You ask for a FOIA, Freedom of Information request, very early, so that you can get on top of this thing before it gets out of hand. Okay, and you might lose your own rights, okay, and property too. So it's very important that you remember these things. So as I say, ladies and gentlemen, we don't be confrontational with the officer. Bad idea, particularly at the side of the road in nowhere, out in the country somewhere where nobody can be a witness. Very ill advised. Do not do it. Better you take the citation, a little fraction they give you, and you go and you deal with it after. But I would not advise you argue with an officer in the middle of nowhere. It's a very, very dangerous thing to do. Generally, you get something to the post looking like this. Yeah, kind of driving and bustling kind of thing. They'll send you that. And if all else fail, they pass it on to this lot. We all know them. They will want to do all kind of funny things, come around and pretend they have some kind of powers. But of course, if it's a debt you lawfully owe, I advise everybody to pay their debt. Now, I'm not advising anyone to do anything. I'm just giving information here. I don't give legal information. I only give lawful legal advice. I only give lawful information. Okay, so this is how I handle my situation. As I say, I too get these from time to time, but of course, if I'm traveling on a license, I will do all they ask and pay a levy. If I'm not traveling on a license, then of course I'm not obliged to do any such thing. So I hope this information was very helpful to you, and I hope you can join me spreading this news as well. I do a talk show every day from 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. My website is www.commonlawsolution, as the sign clearly states, solution.org. And you can write me an email on commonlawsolution @gmail.com. You can also, if you have any questions, I could, you could send me you can give me a call or send me a voice message on 0757746270. I'll be happy to answer all your questions. And also, if you press that old microphone on the WhatsApp, there you can send me a voice message as well, and I'll answer your questions, and I'll upload it online, and everybody can hear the answer to all the various questions asked. So if you don't want your voice to be heard, you let me know, and I'll delete it from the online platform. But I encourage everybody to let their voice be heard, and as I say, no people can be ignorant and free at the same time. And if you don't know your rights, you lose it. And remember, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So, if you're ignorant to what is rightfully yours, your property and your rights, then of course you're going to lose all of it. A famous singer once says, I think it was Bob Marley, he says that none but ourselves can free our mind. So only us can free our minds from this mental slavery, because we all seems to think that man is bound by some kind of rules. The only laws we are bound by is the laws of nature, laws of gravity, etc. Man is limitless in his capacity. Man is boundless by any rule, laws, or obligation. Man is a sovereign, and our right to self-determination, our right to self-rule is unlimited and is boundless. It's not bound by anything or anyone. Okay, it's not bound by a corporation or fictional entity. It's not bound by any human being. None of your fellow peers, your fellow man, can bound you to anything. Okay, it has to be agreed. There have to be a meeting of the minds, and somebody has to testify that you have done them wrong. Okay, so I hope I was able to shed some light on this, and for those, hope I was able to answer all your questions regarding these four laws. One that's diametrically opposed to the rest, which is statutory, legal, these laws of the code, generally operated and manned by machines. Okay, with a little assistance from human beings, but it's largely manned by machines these days. Cameras, send you a ticket and that's it. You have to pay $100 or $200 or $300 or £200 fine. So there we go. So I hope this was very informative, and God bless you all. And I hope to do a lot more videos in the future. There's a lot more videos coming up, such as how to present yourself in court, at court, how to write a notice letter, how to write an harassment letter, so on and so on and so forth, letter of harassment, so on and so on. So we will go into all that in subsequent videos to come. You take care now, and I hope to see you in the next videos. God bless, and see you next time. Have a good day.